The moment the announcement hit, it sent a jolt through boardrooms, stock exchanges, and political offices across North America. Canada had officially placed new restrictions on some of the most powerful U.S. brands operating within its borders. And within minutes, tensions between the two nations escalated dramatically. What had been simmering quietly beneath the surface of diplomatic and trade discussions suddenly erupted into a full-scale economic confrontation that could reshape the future of cross-border commerce. The decision did not arrive with vague language or symbolic gestures. It was direct, targeted, and impossible to ignore. For American corporations with deep investments in Canadian markets, the implications were immediate and potentially severe. For Washington, it was a move that demanded response. And for global markets watching closely, it was yet another sign that economic alliances, once considered stable, are now vulnerable to rapid and unpredictable change. The restrictions targeted some of the biggest names in U.S. industry companies, whose brands are recognized worldwide and whose operations span continents. From technology and retail to manufacturing and energy, the ripple effects began almost instantly. Shares of major corporations fluctuated as investors tried to understand the scale and permanence of the new measures. Analysts rushed to update forecasts. Trade experts began dissecting the legal and political dimensions. What had triggered this sudden escalation, and how far could it go? Before we dive deeper into this dramatic economic showdown and uncover what it means for U.S.-Canada relations and the global marketplace, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. These high-stakes political and financial developments are reshaping the world in real time, and staying informed has never been more important as events continue to unfold. At the heart of the controversy lies a growing dispute over trade, fairness, market access, and national economic priorities. Canadian officials stated that the new restrictions were designed to protect domestic industries and ensure balanced competition. But in Washington, the move was viewed by many as a direct challenge to American corporate influence and economic presence. The restrictions included tighter regulations, new compliance requirements, and limitations affecting how certain U.S. brands can operate and expand within Canadian territory. For years, U.S. companies have enjoyed relatively seamless access to Canadian markets. The two nations share one of the most integrated economic relationships in the world, with billions of dollars in goods and services crossing the border daily. American brands have become deeply embedded in Canadian consumer culture, dominating sectors ranging from fast food and retail to digital services and entertainment. The new restrictions, therefore, represent not just a regulatory adjustment, but a significant shift in the economic landscape. Executives at major U.S. corporations reacted swiftly. Emergency meetings were convened to assess potential impacts on operations, revenue streams, and long-term investment plans. Legal teams began reviewing the fine print of the new regulations, while public relations departments prepared statements aimed at reassuring investors and customers. For many companies, Canada represents one of the most lucrative and stable international markets. Any disruption to that stability carries serious financial implications. Markets responded with a mix of anxiety and calculation. Technology stocks with strong Canadian user bases experienced sudden volatility. Retail giants saw share prices dip as investors anticipated potential sales declines or increased operational costs. Supply chain companies braced for possible delays and logistical complications. Even sectors not directly targeted by the restrictions felt the tremor, as the broader climate of uncertainty began influencing investment sentiment. The political dimension added another layer of complexity. In Washington, policymakers debated possible responses ranging from diplomatic negotiations to reciprocal measures against Canadian firms operating in the United States. Some officials called for restraint, emphasizing the importance of preserving the long-standing partnership between the two countries. Others argued that a strong response was necessary to protect American economic interests and deter further restrictions. Canadian leadership, meanwhile, framed the decision as a necessary step to safeguard national industries and maintain economic sovereignty. Supporters within Canada praised the move as a bold assertion of independence in an era where global corporations wield enormous influence. Critics warned that escalating tensions with the United States could backfire, potentially leading to retaliatory actions that might harm Canadian exporters and investors. The consumer impact quickly became a topic of discussion. If restrictions lead to higher costs for U.S. brands operating in Canada, those costs could be passed on to customers. Price increases, reduced product availability, or shifts in service offerings are all possible outcomes. Canadian consumers, accustomed to a wide range of American products and services, may begin noticing subtle changes in the marketplace. At the same time, domestic Canadian brands could see new opportunities to expand and capture market share. Industry groups on both sides of the border began urging dialogue. Business leaders emphasized that deeply integrated supply chains make sudden regulatory shifts risky for all parties involved. Automotive manufacturers, for example, rely on components that cross the US-Canada border multiple times during production. Technology firms operate data centers and service networks spanning both countries. Disruptions in one area can cascade through entire industries. Global observers are watching closely because the implications extend far beyond North America. The United States and Canada serve as a model for cross-border economic cooperation. If tensions between them intensify, it could signal a broader trend toward protectionism and economic fragmentation worldwide. International investors are already recalibrating risk assessments, considering how similar disputes might emerge in other regions. Currency markets have shown sensitivity to the unfolding situation. Fluctuations in the US and Canadian dollars reflect shifting expectations about trade flows and economic stability. Commodity markets are also paying attention, particularly in sectors where cross-border trade plays a major role. Energy exports, agricultural products, and raw materials all depend on stable bilateral relations. Diplomatic channels are reportedly active, even as public rhetoric grows sharper. Negotiators are likely exploring potential compromises that could ease tensions without appearing to concede too much ground. Such discussions often involve complex trade-offs, balancing political optics with economic realities. The challenge lies in finding a path that satisfies domestic audiences while preserving the broader partnership. Public opinion in both countries is evolving as the story unfolds. In Canada, some view the restrictions as long overdue measures to level the playing field for local businesses. In the United States, reactions range from calls for firm retaliation to appeals for calm and negotiation. Social media has amplified the debate, with commentators and analysts offering competing interpretations of the move and its potential consequences. For workers employed by U.S. brands operating in Canada, uncertainty looms. Changes in regulations can affect hiring plans, wages, and job security. Companies facing increased costs or operational hurdles may reconsider expansion strategies or adjust staffing levels. The human dimension of trade disputes often becomes most visible at the local level, where communities feel the direct impact of corporate decisions. Investors are focusing not only on immediate market reactions, but also on long-term implications. If restrictions persist or expand, companies may need to diversify operations, seek alternative markets, or adjust supply chains. Such shifts require time and capital, influencing profitability and growth trajectories. The uncertainty itself can dampen investment as firms adopt a wait-and-see approach. The restrictions also raise broader questions about the future of globalization. For decades, economic integration has been driven by the assumption that open markets and cross-border cooperation benefit all participants. Recent years, however, have seen a resurgence of national economic strategies aimed at protecting domestic industries and reducing reliance on foreign entities. Canada's move fits within this evolving landscape, reflecting a recalibration of priorities in a changing world. Trump's response, whether immediate or measured, will play a crucial role in shaping the next phase of this confrontation. A conciliatory approach could open the door to renegotiation and compromise. A more aggressive stance could escalate tensions, potentially triggering a cycle of retaliatory measures. Each path carries risks and opportunities, not only for the two nations involved, but for the global economy. Financial institutions are closely monitoring developments. Banks with exposure to cross-border commerce are assessing potential impacts on lending, investment, and currency operation. Insurance companies are evaluating risk models. Trade finance specialists are reviewing contracts and contingency plans. The interconnected nature of modern finance means that regulatory changes in one area can influence multiple sectors simultaneously. Amid the uncertainty, some businesses are identifying opportunities. Canadian companies competing with U.S. brands may gain market share if restrictions limit American presence. Alternative international suppliers could step in to fill gaps. Entrepreneurs may find openings to introduce new products and services tailored to shifting market conditions. Economic disruption often creates space for innovation and adaptation. Yet the overarching mood remains cautious. Stability and predictability are highly valued in international trade, and sudden regulatory shifts challenge both. Companies and governments alike must navigate a complex environment where economic interests intersect with political considerations. The outcome of this standoff will likely influence how future disputes are handled and how resilient the US-Canada partnership proves to be. As days pass and negotiations continue, the world watches for signals of de-escalation or further confrontation. Each statement from officials, each market movement, each corporate decision adds another piece to the puzzle. The stakes extend beyond individual companies or short-term profits. They touch on the broader principles governing international commerce and cooperation. In the end, Canada's decision to place new restrictions on top U.S. brands has ignited a moment of reckoning. It has exposed vulnerabilities in even the strongest economic relationships and highlighted the delicate balance between national priorities and global integration. Whether this episode leads to renewed cooperation or prolonged tension will depend on choices made in the days and weeks ahead. What is certain is that the consequences will reverberate far beyond the immediate dispute, shaping perceptions of trade, power, and partnership in a rapidly changing world.